You probably heard these words thrown around all the time, right? Economic growth, human development, sustainability. But are they all just different ways of saying the same thing? Well, spoiler alert, they're not. They actually tell a fascinating story about how we've changed our minds about what progress really means. It's a journey from asking, how much bigger can we get, to a much, much deeper question, how much better can we live? So, let's break it all down.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the old-school classic idea of pure economic growth. From there, we'll see how we started adding new layers to that idea. First, we'll bring people into the picture, then we'll talk about fairness, and finally, we'll look at the future itself. Each one is a building block that gets us to the full story.
So, this is the big question we're diving into today. Are these just fancy buzzwords that basically mean the same thing, or do they represent totally different ways of thinking about how we move forward? Stick with me, because by the end of this, the answer is going to be super clear.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. For a huge chunk of the 20th century, especially in the decades after World War II, the goal for most countries was really simple. Make the economy bigger. That was it. That was seen as the key to solving everything else.
Economic growth is all about one thing: quantity. How much stuff is a country making? How fast is that number going up? And the big scoreboard for this game is the GDP. It's just adding up the dollar value of every single thing produced in a year. The core belief was simple. If you make the economy bigger, all the other problems will just sort of solve themselves.
But here's where the story gets interesting. By the 1970s, people started noticing a huge problem. This rising tide of GDP, well, it wasn't lifting all the boats. You had countries with these amazing GDP numbers, but at the same time, millions of their people were still stuck in poverty. And that led to a massive question. If our economy is getting so much bigger, why aren't people's lives getting any better?
And that single question, that one little crack in the foundation, it sparked a total revolution in how we think about economics. The frustration with just looking at GDP led to this major shift from only measuring the quantity of stuff to trying to measure the quality of life.
And that brings us to this incredible idea of human development. It completely flips the script. It says, hey, progress isn't really about the economy, it's about the people. This was championed by thinkers like Amartya Sen, who called it development as freedom. The real yardstick for progress became, are people healthy? Are they educated? Do they have real choices to live a life they actually value? And this lays out the difference perfectly. Economic growth, on the left, is all about what a country has, its income. Human development, on the right, is about what people can do and be. It's a huge shift from focusing on money to focusing on human well-being and freedom. So to measure this new idea, the UN developed something called the Human Development Index, or HDI. It looks at three basic things. Are people living long, healthy lives? Do they have access to knowledge? And do they have a decent standard of living? So yeah, income is still in there, but now it's just one part of a much bigger, much more human story.
Okay, so the picture is getting better. We're looking at people's lives now. But another problem started to pop up. A country's overall HDI score could be going up, but underneath the surface, there could be massive inequality. If only the wealthy are getting healthier and better educated, is that really progress? Who is actually benefiting from all this?
And that brings us to our next crucial idea, inclusivity. It's not enough for the pie to get bigger, or even for the average slice to get better. You have to ask, who is actually getting a piece of that pie? And is the distribution fair?
So inclusive growth is designed to attack poverty and inequality head-on. It says the way we grow the economy has to create opportunities for everyone, especially for the people who are usually left behind. It's all about making sure the benefits of growth are shared broadly, not just hoarded at the very top. And it's so important to understand that this kind of deep inequality, it doesn't just happen by accident. It's often baked into history. Past injustices created systems that lock in advantages for some and disadvantages for others, for generations. And the whole point of inclusive policies is to try and actively correct for that imbalance.
Okay, so let's just take a quick breath. Our model of progress is getting pretty good now, right? We've gone from just getting bigger to getting better to making sure it's better for everyone. But all of this is focused on right now, on the present. And that leaves one giant question just hanging in the air.
This is the question that changed everything. What good is all this growth and development today if it completely wrecks the planet and steals opportunities from the people who come after us? And this leads us to the final, and maybe the most important layer of them all,
Sustainability. This is the idea that brings time, the future, and the limits of our planet right into the heart of the conversation.
This right here is the classic, most powerful definition there is. It's from a major report back in 1987, and the idea is just so simple and profound. We have a responsibility not just to ourselves here and now, but to all the people who will come after us. It's about striking a balance.
And to strike that balance, sustainable development is often described as a three-legged stool. You need a healthy economy, sure, but you also need a fair and just society. And both of those legs have to stand on a healthy planet. The key insight is that you can't have one without the others, not for long anyway. They all have to work together.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. We've gone from a simple number like GDP all the way to this really complex vision of what progress should look like. So let's put all the pieces together and see the full picture.
What's so cool about this chart is that you can literally see our journey laid out. You can see how the core question we ask about progress has gotten deeper and more sophisticated over time. We started with a simple, how much bigger? But now we're forced to ask much tougher questions like better for whom? And critically, for how long?
And that, right there, is the whole story. It's about our evolving understanding of what it means to be a successful society. Each new idea didn't throw the old one out. It built on top of it, adding another layer of wisdom and responsibility. It's a journey from just looking at numbers to having a real vision for humanity and our planet. So we have the language now. We know the difference between just getting bigger and actually getting better. For everyone, for the long haul. The final question, the one that really matters now, isn't about definitions anymore. It's about whether we have the collective will to actually go out and build the world that these words describe.